All right, great. So we have a lot of news to talk about, and so it's been a great year so far for RPGs. With the games that are already out and what we've learned so far, is going to be an exciting year. So let's move right into one of the biggest stories that we've got so far. Is that recently Sega announced, and it was late last year, of course. Sega announced Valkyria Azure Revolution and the remastered Valkyria Chronicles 1. They quickly announced just a little bit ago that Valkyria Chronicles Remastered would be coming to the West. Now, they have not touched on whether the Azure Revolution is going to be making its way here as well, or even just the demo, which is kind of nuts because we're already almost into springtime, and that's when Remastered's supposed to be out. So I hope they tell us soon. It makes it seem like there's a lot of backroom dealing going on, trying to make that thing happen. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Sega of America that would love to have that be a thing here too. I guess they're just kind of wait and see whether Japan agrees. But they released, so Valkyria Chronicles Remasters just came out in Japan not long ago, and so with that we've got the Valkyria Azure Revolution. Trying to say this all in one breath is probably not the best idea.
Hold on, Zach. Let me take two steps back. What is Valkyria Chronicles Remastered?
So, for all it's worth, it just sounds like it's just the PC version. It's the original game, remastered in 1080p, with all the DLC that came out. So you've got the side missions that were part of the DLC, all the other content that came with it. All packaged up with the trophies that you want.
Trophies in my Valkyria Chronicles?
Yes, trophies.
Is it happening?
I know, right? And that's the thing where it's like when they... So, backing up even further, Sony actually didn't make trophies the standard until like 2009, I think, or 2010. And so you've had games in the past, such as one of the more prolific ones was Metal Gear Solid 4. It did not have trophies, but they patched that in later. Sega did not do that for Valkyria Chronicles, though. And so, Josh, you take over. I'm talking a lot. You continue with this.
Okay. All right. So Valkyria Chronicles Remastered, as Zach said, 1080p, I think 60 frames. I'm not sure. For the PS4.
And it's $30. It's $30.
It's 30. Yeah. It's $30. It's quite a hell of a deal for one of my favorite games on the PS3. So this PS4 remake or remastered in Japan. The first print copies of it come with this Valkyria Azure Revolution Battle Demo 1.0. I know it's
like episode Deske Final Fantasy 15.
A little bit, yeah. It's very much a proof in concept in which they're showing off the first gameplay of this new Valkyria game. That's not necessarily part of the Chronicle series. They say that it's its own alternate series with the Valkyria name in it. It has very much concepts of like the Rag Knight and Valkyria in it, but it's not part of the Chronicles series.
No,
so
it's they already said it's like they're splitting off the series where one's going to be the strategy RPG version and one's more the action RPG.
Mm-hmm. And then so recently, they put out footage on what Valkyria Azure Revolution actually, plays like at this current stage, and it's very much up for improvement. They're taking feedback, what doesn't work in it, what doesn't. So I just kind of want to have a little bit of conversation of you both have seen it, Adam and Zach.
Yes.
What do you guys think about it so far?
I think it looks interesting. Obviously, like we said, it's only a proof of concept, but the whole idea of having full control of your character, I mean, the best way to kind of compare it is to anyone who played the first game. It's as if you have unlimited running power, so you don't, or stamina, whatever, so you can run around as much as you want, attack enemies, but there's more depending on not just guns, but also melee weapons, which wasn't so much used in the first game unless you were one of the Valkyries, of course.
Yeah, the melee weapons showed up a little bit more in like the sequels, like Valkyria Chronicles 2 and 3. But no, I wasn't... In Valkyria Chronicles, you basically can control all the actions. There's a couple of times like where your characters will shoot back at enemies as they move, but you basically control everything. Where in this action RPG, there's actually like an AI element where your comrades are like kind of off doing their own thing, supporting you, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, you're
that's
one character, and you can switch between the characters.
Oh, you can switch?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't recall, but I know it's different in that case. Where like the original Valkyria Chronicles is definitely very much strategy RPG where you control mostly everything on your own. Where this Azure Revolution has just a hinge more of that, party AI where there's maybe a little bit of coordination you can control, but there's some reliance on, what these, computer-controlled, supports are going to be doing with you as you play. So that's quite a bit different. And that's that more action RPG element there.
So what I was trying to get from the video is that every time you come across an encounter, it says like good situation, bad situation. Does anyone know exactly what that means?
I assume
think
it's
the
like
way you approach an enemy. I think.
Like from the front or from the back or something like that, or if you're maybe surrounded.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works. To me personally, like I don't have a strong opinion either way right now on it. It's very like I know there's been a lot of like negative feedback on it because it's just it's very basic right now. It doesn't really run all that well. There's placeholder textures. There's hitching, and it looks fairly basic. Like you go into an enemy encounter. Like there's like a cover system. It kind of looks like a third-person shooter type approaching enemies.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you get up to them, it's a very very basic like close quarters combat, like your standard attacks and special attacks. But it's not like say a Platinum Games type of caliber of action.
No, it's meant to be very. You have to obviously use your environment in order to defeat the enemy, just like you would in another games. But yeah, people comparing it to Valkyria Chronicles, which they shouldn't be because it's not supposed to be those games. It's something completely different, something experimental. They wanted to do something different. They've made it very clear that it doesn't mean it's the end of the series, but from what the demo footage showed, it seems interesting. I totally agree with that. It seems like they've got something to work with, and hopefully they'll, as you said, take into consideration all the feedback that they're getting and make some changes to that. Obviously, they're not going to throw the whole thing out, but a lot of it seems like a lot of people outside looking in, people who have not actually played it themselves. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how that'll go.
And also, people have to keep in mind that the game is titled like it is for a reason. It's not Valkyria Chronicles 4. It's its own thing.
Exactly.
And it's going to change. It's going to change how it plays. So you can't expect it to be exactly like Valkyria Chronicles because it's not. It isn't Valkyria Chronicles. It's kind of just it's a spin-off. That's what it is.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So and so with that. Obviously, that demo footage is out there. You can check it up on our site, RPGsite.net.
I believe there's another battle demo, like 2.0, coming like later this year.
Yeah, they said that they're going to take feedback and do another demo because this demo was titled 1.0 from the very beginning, so it was kind of implied that there'd always be another one. So the other one is supposed to come out like in summer or something, and the game is scheduled in Japan for winter. It may not be this year; it might be early next year, but yeah, that's kind of the timeline.
Great. So, just look out for that footage on the site. Valkyria Chronicles Remastered is already up for pre-order on all the major retailers, so get that steelbook while you can. So now that we've talked about that, now there's also some more information coming out for the new East game. It's exciting because they announced that back. Was it last year's TGS?
I think it was originally announced in TGS 2014.
Yeah.
They just showed that tiny little footage that they had of running like on the outside, like next to some water.
It seems like what happened was they announced it at TGS 2014, but at that time they were really more focused on like Senno Kaseki 2 and Tokyo Xanadu. And then once they kind of got those out, then they started to really ratchet up the Yeast stuff. So anyways, Yeast 8. It's already pretty. So the Yeast games all have like slightly different styles. Like the original Yeast games are pretty different from Yeast Origin and Yeast Open Felgana, which are pretty different from the most recent ones, Yeast Memories of Celceta and Yeast 7. So this one is kind of in the style of those games. Yeast Memories and Celceta being the most recent.
You're going to have trouble with that word, aren't you?
Celceta.
Great. It's Celceta, come on.
Not Celta. Okay,
Celceta.
anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, so it's got a party system, and they detailed the two characters that we've seen from the very original trailer. So there's a girl, Raksha. She's like a noble youth. She wields a rapier, and she's said to be like she's knowledgeable about like history and ancient plants and animals and those types of things. And then the guy, Sahad, he almost seems like kind of like a Dogi replacement. Dogi being kind of battles.
Dogi.
Where he was stranded alongside Adol in this game, and he's just along for the ride type of deal. So.
And a gigantic anchor.
Yeah, his weapon is an anchor.
We're looking at the picture right now. He has a gigantic anchor on his back. Like he just was around some like derelict ship somewhere and just picked it up. And he's like, this looks good. I'll use this in battle.
Yeah, well, this game...
He's a fisherman. That's what he does. He carries around like giant anchors. That's what.
So this game, they've already detailed a bit of it, but not all of it.
Yeah.
It supposedly has the map-making system that Celceta had, where you basically there's literally a percentage of the map you're uncovering, and you get bonuses for, uncovering the map, and you find treasure and all that too. And then it's got the party system where the different characters have some different abilities, and their effectiveness versus certain animals is probably different. Some of the things that are new is they seem to be a little bit of a focus on like large monsters. Gigantic type beasts that they have to fight. Those are in some of the screenshots and artwork.
It's crazy how it looks. It looks really, really good too. Like if you're comparing it to the other games in the series.
Yeah. So this new one is PS4, PS Vita.
Yes.
So it looks good for a Vita game. Probably not so good for a PS4 game.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. It doesn't look that great on the blown up, but I still think it's impressive for what the series has been like in the past. That's for sure.
And some of the things they haven't quite confirmed yet. They mentioned in one of the interviews something about like some sort of defense mechanic where like you have to defend towns from attacks or something.
There's like some weird tower defense.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say it's like there'll be monsters like sieging
and
towns.
that ties in with these giant monsters. So they haven't really detailed that fully. Another thing is one of the main characters. I don't think she's been given a name yet. She's got the blue hair. She's in the main
artwork. Yep.
There's been some screenshots of her, and it seems like she's like in a different type of gameplay mode than the rest.
Oh.
Yeah. So I know what some people have speculated is that Adol and his partners are like E7 or E Celceta, where it's like a party system, whereas maybe you play as this girl in more like a solo like levels of the game by herself. And she has weapons. Yeah, can she bump?
Just running into people. That's the different mode, right? It's the different gameplay mode entirely.
Sign me up.
Well, I think all we have to go on is like a screenshot of her wielding like a dual scythe type thing. But anyways, it hasn't really detailed her at all. We just know she's in the game somehow. But yeah, I'm definitely really looking forward to this one. It hasn't been announced for localization yet, although I'm sure Xseed is on it.
And it's actually got a full name. So it's Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana or something?
Something.
Lacrimosa of Dana. And let me look up. It's Latin.
Really? I guess if you look at the actual like the logo art that they have, it totally looks like they're trying to be inspired by that type of culture.
Well, the Ys games are kind of weird that they kind of like take place like Adol is from like fake Europe or something.
Yeah.
And like a lot of these games will reference like these European countries or like Greece. I think they say Sahad is from Greece or something. So it's kind of weird how they do that. It's like a fantasy world that's somewhat related to like the real Europe,
the
European names. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I believe in this game now. There's like 3 different types of ways you can attack too. There's like slash, strike, and I forgot what the last one was.
Yeah,
there'll be like some enemies that are like more prone to one over the other, but there's a way to like break them, and then which will make all them more prone to all the attacks.
Okay, first of all, Lacrimosa means like weeping in Latin, so it's like the weeping or sadness of Dana, whatever Dana is.
It's the girl. It's the blue hair. We've got it.
She's blue-haired girl's Dana because she's gonna get left by Adol, all the other.
It's like some weird like emotional relationship.
I know.
It's like kind of fortune teller from the other games. Like you always leave her behind. Something happens.
Well, timeline. I know timeline-wise, this game takes place before E7 and also Ys. Arc of Nepotism.
Man, this is super early then, right?
Yeah,
Jeez.
so it's kind of like a mid-quill. So it's kind of anyway. But yeah, I know they mentioned something about 3 different attack styles. Now Ys7 had like different characters, like had sword attacks or blunt attacks or or
Yeah,
sharp
different
attacks.
specific attacks that they
So it
can
seems to be something similar to that. Maybe I know Tokyo's Xanadu had something like that as well. So maybe kind of drawing inspiration there. But
I mean,
also,
you can already pull from the characters. Like Sahad obviously looks like a power character. Raksha looks like a quick, like a very fast, quick.
and Adal is supposed to be balanced. He always is.
He's always the balanced one.
Usually the main character is the balanced one, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then and also like the enemy parts breaking type systems that they've kind of implied that would fit in with like the monsters being giant and things like that too. So it's it seems like they're adding in a few tweaks without changing it too much. But we'll see.
Great.
I really dig that like one UC screenshot that they released recently. That looks like there's like a freaking T-Rex in the background.
Yeah, just trying to
like-
run around it, attack its legs or something like that.
Like, all right, I guess.
So great. So that's Easy 8. Obviously, it's coming out later this year for PlayStation 4 and Vita in Japan. No announcement for the West, but we can all hope with Xseed's better relationship with Falcom that we'll get it. Moving on, now a recent localization announcement, in fact, that just only came out just this past week as of this recording. Shiren the Wanderer 5 Plus is heading to the Vita, which is the enhanced version of the game. Now, that's not the Western name for that game. It's how does that go? I think it's just is it just Shiren the Wanderer?
It's Shiren the Wanderer, the Tower of Fortune, and the Dice of Fate.
Oh my God, it's just like. Was it the Tree of Fate in the World Below? Whatever that Dragon Quest Heroes
No,
name
Dragon Quest
was,
Heroes,
it's just the exact same. Like that name is way too long for the box art.
Yeah. So anyway, like this is like the main, like the biggest like roguelike franchise, really.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. It's part of the Mystery Dungeon series. Now, I know a lot of people in the West, the Mystery Dungeon, they might think of like Pokemon first.
Yes.
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. And I know some people might like make fun of like, wait, this Shiren game is just copying Pokemon Mystery Dungeon when it's kind of the other way around.
Yeah, it's actually is inspired by it, and it
Right.
was the whole point of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was to try to make a more accessible version of this game. I mean, the thing about the Shiren Wanderer series, from what I've heard, is that it's already kind of one of the more. Once again, it's actually a pretty accessible roguelike.
Yeah,
It's
yes.
still kind of brutal at times, just from, you go out into the dungeon and anything, if you die while you're out there, you lose items. But I think it's actually meant to be more approachable in that you still keep some of those things, or at least it's not as, it doesn't punish you as badly as some other games might. And it's also got this really cool 2D sprite style that continues in as to this day. Some people might have played the Wii game that came out to the West, because so few of the games in this series actually gets localized. I think that might be. Is that maybe the?
I
only
think
one?
there was a DS game
Yeah.
of the original. It was like a remake of the original that came out in the West. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. I do know the Shiren the Wanderer game that came out on Wii. I think in the US it was just called Shiren the Wanderer.
Yeah, it is.
I think
Yeah.
that was actually the third one. And then the fourth one came out in Japan and we never got it. And then this is the fifth one, and it's actually an upgraded version of the fifth one.
Yeah.
The Plus version. I think the original is 3DS or maybe even regular DS, and this is Vita. So anyways, it's the latest game.
Yeah,
And
it's a turn-based roguelike too. So obviously you run up an enemy. If you engage with them, then you take a turn, the enemy takes a turn, and so on. And so it's not as crazy as some other roguelikes where you're kind of at the whim of like, because you reviewed Brandish, right? And so that's kind of the other.
well,
type of
actually, I haven't played a lot of roguelikes, but I played Etrian Mystery Dungeon.
Yeah.
Again, the Mystery Dungeon, it's just kind
It's
of
more
another
dungeon crawler, yeah, but yeah.
So yeah, the dungeons are random every time. There is no map. I mean, you can map out the floors, but they're random every time you enter. And then if you lose all your health or you lose your life in the dungeon, I know in Etrian, in other roguelikes, you have to send out like a second party to go retrieve them.
Yeah.
And you can't like save scum or anything. As soon as you turn off, I know a lot of these roguelikes, as soon as you turn off the game, it makes a save for you, so you can't like reload it. You have to be very careful. So I know Shiren the Wanderer is supposed to be a little bit more accessible, but it probably still has some of those more hardcore elements in place that make a roguelike. But I know it's not supposed to be the most like difficult one out there. And I should also mention that I'm pretty sure this doesn't require any like knowledge of the series or anything. There's no,
I don't think
there's no
totally.
major storyline.
That's not this.
There's no. The storyline is pretty basic. I'd assume.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is that it's got online co-op, so you can totally like have someone else join you and go into the dungeons with them,
or save you if you lose.
Yes. And it's like carry you through all the dungeons. The higher level friend that is doing everything for you because you're so great, and you said you would buy him dinner later or something like that. So it's apparently it looks great. I think I'm excited for more games like this. Axis Games is doing the work to bring this game over, which they've been doing a lot of localizations lately, which is awesome. It means they're doing well. So I'm glad to see that. I'm excited to see more about that. So, and that's supposed to be coming here. I'm sorry?
Do you remember the subtitle? Come on, you can do it.
Was it? I'm not even looking at it. The Tower of Fortune and the Dice of Fate.
I feel like you're just cheated, but all right.
Yeah, we'll take your word for it.
Is that what it is?
That's exactly what it was. Oh, you did it. You did it.
I don't even... That's terrible. All right, so now that's coming out July 26th, exclusive to the Vita in North America. Nothing announced yet for the European people, so cross your fingers and hope that that's going to come over there too. But now we've got that out of the way. Now we're moving on to a new announcement that was actually before we talk about that. We also heard that Grand Kingdom is coming over to the West as well. A lot of people didn't know if that was going to make the trip over, but this game's got a little bit of a history. It's from the director of the Grand Knights History game that almost saw a localization, but
it was canceled at like
the very last moment. I think they even had if I'm not mistaken, I think that they said it was already translated, but it just didn't.
Well, I don't remember right, but it was like announced. Yes. It was formally announced, and then
you could pre-order. It was pre-orderable too.
And then they canceled it, which you don't see that often.
Yeah, it was being localized by Xseed Games, but unfortunately, at the Vanillaware's end, they didn't have the time and resources to put in the programming. From what I remember, because they had a lot of other projects at that time that they put in higher priority. So it just circumstance and coincidence. Unfortunately, didn't see Grand Knight's History. Over here,
I think it's got a fan translation, but that's about it. So
yeah,
but anyways,
Grand Kingdom, it's like an online. It's kind of weird because it doesn't seem like you can easily compare it to any other game, at least any other game in English, so easily in terms of how it plays. So it's like a strategy game, and there seems to be a grid type element where you're moving squads around.
Yeah.
But then, like, the battle system is like this. They actually describe it lane-based 2D, where it's turns, but they take there's movement based on an action gauge, and they actually compare it to Valkyria Chronicles. So like you can do so much in a certain amount of like space with your units. So you have various units of different classes, like the warrior and the wizard and those types of things. And it also has like an online component too, where you can battle other players and things like that. So it's kind of hard to really know how this game works because it's hard to compare. But the art style is really neat.
Yeah. So this time around, it's not being developed by Vanillaware. The Grand Knights History director Tomohiko Deguchi formed a new studio, Monochrome, and they're the ones responsible for the development of the game. And the really interesting thing about Grand Kingdom, like what Adam was saying about the online thing, is players have the option to choose a kingdom to fight for, and that's when the online multiplayer comes in. It's like you're expanding the territory, the influence of the kingdom that you represent. There's like this tension of hey, I'm gonna battle this person for my kingdom, and whatnot. So. I don't know the specifics of how exactly everything works together and what benefits you get from expanding your kingdom's influence and whatnot, but it's very awesome to see that that Miss America is putting forth the effort, because there's been understandably worries that if we'll ever see this because of what happened, the unfortunate demise of the Grand Knights History localization.
Well, this game is it's developed by Monochrome, which is probably a pretty small new Japanese studio, but it's being published in Japan by Spike Chunsoft, and we're seeing a lot of their games now with the visual novels and the
Yeah, you think it's like the relationship, Nice America's relationship with Spike Chunsoft that made that happen? It could potentially be just because they probably own that IP, but also, yeah,
hopefully we can get other games like Exist Archive too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Only Tri-Ace being there might be. Sorry.
Let's not talk about the games that could potentially be. So yes, Grand Kingdom launching on June 21st in North America and on the 17th in Europe for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita. Obviously, we'll have more news as it comes out for that game. So now that we've gotten the localization announcements out of the way, some other big games that were recently announced. Black Rose Valkyrie from Compile Heart. Obviously going in a different direction from the people that brought you Neptunia. Adam, you know a little bit about this game?
I mean, they haven't really revealed a lot.
It's still small, yeah.
Yeah, but so Compile Heart, they announced that they're coming out with like a new series of games that they're calling part of their Idea Factory International brand, not to be confused with Idea Factory International, the localization studio. They're supposedly totally separate.
Yeah, it's more of a brand.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's different from Neptunia and their other Compile Heart games, and you can actually tell that right away. So, the main artist in this game, Black Rose Valkyrie, is Kosuke Fujishima. Who you may not recognize his name, but you probably have seen his art with the Tales series. He does a lot of the Tales games, character art, and so it's got a pretty different art style from most Compile Heart games. And all we really know about it so far is that it stars a main character, a guy, and he's got 5 girls.
That's like a Compile Heart game. Yep.
Yeah, it's a Compile Heart game. So
checks out.
Checks out.
Yep. Still, despite the art style, and they are in league with him. However, when you play the game, one of these characters is traitorous, and they haven't really detailed this too much yet. But it sounds like part of the game itself is trying to figure out which of these characters you can trust and which one is the traitor.
You know what that sounds like?
It sounds like Lost Dimension,
yeah.
which that was a Furyu game that came out last year that Atlas localized. So we have no idea if it'll be similar to that in structure or not, but it sounds like that same premise anyway.
Yeah, we've got a trailer for that up on the site, so you can check it out. It's obviously, you can, even if it's in Japanese, you can pretty much get the gist of what that game is going for.
Yeah, all they've really shown so far is they had the debut trailer, and then they had a quick character trailer where they just went over the 5 heroines and the hero, and that was it.
I love how there's artwork for all this evil dark side of each of their heroines.
It's a cool effect the way they introduce each character like that, so you know that you could be anybody. I wonder if it's randomized. That would be.
But yeah, it does. Besides the fact that it's features a lot of girl anime type characters, it does seem to probably be going for a slightly different tone. Maybe it's hard to tell at this point.
I think so,
but
yeah.
The trailers and the art style are pretty different from the bubbly Compile Heart that we see oftentimes.
So yeah, we'll hopefully hear more about that soon. Then other news that came out from Japan, more information about Dragon Quest Heroes 2, the sequel that was announced. It doesn't seem like it was announced that long ago, but they've already put out some more information about the new characters that we'll be seeing. So what we've got here, Josh, if you wouldn't mind just running that down for us.
Okay, so from Dragon Quest IV, we have Mina and Tornico. Dragon Quest VI, we have Carver. Aw, yeah. From Dragon Quest VII, we have Gabo and Maribel. And Dragon Quest VIII, we have Angelo as the new...
Well, the characters like Angelo would have been natural for the last game. It seems weird that he's only now in the sequel, but
I think since the last game had Jessica and Yangus, they're they're not trying to keep all the characters in one game. They're just trying to split them up, I guess.
Yeah.
No one from the more recent games either. They're still stuck on 8 and going back, I guess. But yeah.
I think they have a few from the last game. I think they have Elena and Kirill from 4, Maya from 4 also, and then 6, Terry and Jessica from 8 coming back for the sequel.
Oh, okay. So, but they don't have anyone from 9 or 10. Obviously, 10 would not mean anything to anybody in the West, but that's, if that game comes over.
Does 10 even have set characters, or are they all just player created?
Well, you created an avatar. It did have a single player mode with a story, but it was barely anything, and you can go online, and then obviously with the multiplayer there. So yeah, that's like an MMO with a a single player campaign. That's all it was.
Anyways, the one thing I'm really interested in is, so I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm playing through the Dragon Quest series, and I'm on Dragon Quest IV right now. And so Tornico from Dragon Quest IV is like a kind of an overweight merchant type character.
Yeah,
like
big in the series with his own games. Yes,
yeah, he's got his own game. Actually, I'm pretty sure his game was one of the very first Mystery Dungeon games.
Yes, it was, in fact.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
yes.
But he's a very atypical like RPG character, and I'm just imagining him like wrecking all these enemies in a Muzuo style game, and it's pretty awesome.
Fantastic.
I can imagine
it. The fact that they're recognizing him in this game. Obviously, he's actually one of the more popular characters in the series, so it's great to see him there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they put out more information about the new characters that are coming out. Did they announce anything else?
It's coming out in Japan on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and Vita on May 27th, which is the anniversary for the Dragon Quest series. And I believe
people took that kind of seriously. Like, really? That's the
game? Whatever.
Yeah, really, whatever.
And then they have this event, I believe, on the February 24th, showing like the world's first debut trailer for this game.
Yeah, all they put out is just like artwork and stuff like that. Nothing more than that. So people are hoping for some big changes, but I've not yet played Dragon Quest Heroes, but
I'm excited because I really, really love the aesthetic style of the Dragon Quest Heroes. I think it's lovable. It's a very charming. It constantly reminds that yes, really, this is very much a Dragon Quest game, despite it not usually playing like a typical Dragon Quest.
It should be exciting. I'm interested in seeing that first footage. I mean, it seems like it's not even that far away, and yet we don't even have gameplay about it. But that's Japan. Sometimes they announce games and put them out like a few months later, and then we just learn about it on the way.
Like for example, like Shin Megami Tensei 4 Final.
Yes, now
came out.
Japan. It came out on February the 10th,
and it was announced like 4 or 5 months ago, and that was it.
Like, was
it only 4 or 5 months?
Yeah,
I thought it was like December.
Yeah, like around the same time they put out the new Persona 5 trailer, they announced this
game.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It wasn't that long ago. But yeah, so 4 Final is the quote-unquote sequel to the Shin Megami Tensei 4.
Adam, it was announced, I just checked, it was announced early October, October 5th, and then released in early February. So yeah, like 4 months.
Yeah, just a few days ago. So Adam, you know a lot about this game, right?
Well, I played Shin Megami Tensei 4, and I like it a lot. This is a direct sequel, despite what the name the name kind of sounds like it's like a new version or an upgraded something.
It's like Fez or something like that.
It's a brand new game. It's a sequel. Now, this is a very, very small spoiler, but it actually overlaps the storyline in the first game a little bit. It doesn't take place. The start of Shin Megami Tensei 4 Final takes place before the end of Shin Megami Tensei 4. If that makes sense. It overlaps. So you actually see some of those events that happen at the end of that game from another perspective, from what I gather from Japanese impressions. And so storyline, it seems to be taking a different perspective and kind of building off from there. I don't really know what really happens after that point. Spoilers and all that. That's kind of the setup. In terms of the gameplay style, it looks very similar to Shin Megami Tensei 4 in the battle system and the world and all that. I know the one main difference they advertised was the companion system. So in Shin Megami Tensei 4, sometimes Walter or Jonathan would kind of join you, kind of like as a tertiary member. They would, they'd help out in battle a little bit, but you didn't have much control over them, and they didn't gain levels or anything like that. They just kind of helped at times. They expanded that where now you can choose like 4 to 6 different characters that can join you in battle, and then I believe they do gain experience of some sort, or you can manage them in some way, in addition to the normal demon recruiting. So that seems to be the major. In terms of the combat differences, that seemed to be the biggest tweak that they're making. I believe Josh said earlier that they removed like the smirking mechanic.
Oh yeah, we have to explain to Zach what smirking is.
What is
smirking? I was like, there's a face. I don't know.
Do you want to do it, Adam, or
did you? The first game, so.
Do you want to explain it, or should I explain it?
I'll explain it, I guess.
Okay.
So
right,
in Shin Megami, one of the things that Shin Megami Tensei is, and this is true for a lot of RPGs, but especially SMT, is using elements to your advantage. And Persona is the same way. If an enemy is weak to fire attacks. You do Agi abilities, Agi Dyne or Maragi Dyne or whatever, and that not only does more damage, but it can cancel their attack. It can give you an extra move and things like that. So there's a lot of benefit to using the weakness against them, even more than most games. In Shin Megami Tensei 4, and that's true for a lot of SMT games and Persona games. In Shin Megami Tensei 4, they added a smirk to that, where if you hit a weakness, your character would do. It's like a different stance. They go into a smirking mode or stance. And what that would mean is they would dodge every single attack that would go their way, physical attack, I think, and they would automatically critical their next attack. And so it was a little bit overpowered, even more than it kind of already was. But not only that, the enemies, some enemies could do that, could smirk. Yeah, reminding. But anyways, it kind of just made the balance not as tight as it could have been. It was really easy to abuse, even more so than normal. So I'm kind of glad that they seem to be tweaking it a little bit anyway.
Zach, let me give you a little scenario of how smirking can work against you. So along with this, how the companion system was handled in the first game. So let's say that you're going against this boss that's weak to fire. Or no, who's strong to fire because this smirking mechanic can activate if you activate something that they're strong to as well.
Oh, okay.
So you go up to this boss and he's strong to fire. So and your companion is the person that can only cast fire magic, and you don't have any control over them. So go stroll into battle. You're all ready. You're maybe 4 to 5 levels ahead of this boss, and then your companion is like, "Hey, I only know fire. Here's an Agi for you." So Agi's like, I'm gonna smirk, and then it's like, "Wait, I didn't fuck up, okay?
And now you cannot hit him, basically.
Yeah, this asshole with me is the one who hit you.
Hey, don't get the wrong impression, guy. I'm sorry, okay? Jeez.
So there are a lot of complaints that just by the luck of the draw, by not even a person really screwing up, that they can't beat this boss. Now you just wiped out half of three-fourths of your party members because your companion decided, hey, here's fire.
And it's not even now that I'm thinking of it and remembering it, it doesn't even have to be that specific of a scenario. There are some enemies that are just either dodge a lot or are resistant to physical attacks. And so if your companion starts swinging and just tries doing physical attacks and they miss or they hit a guy who's weak to it, that not only does it cause smirking sometimes, but whenever you miss an enemy, you lose turns. That's how SMT works.
Right. Yeah.
So you're there shooting magic you're a smart person would be, and your companion is attacking and missing, and not only is he just not being useless, but he's actively making your job harder because you're losing turns. That's how SMT works.
Oh my gosh!
So,
have you guys heard of any impressions so far? I mean, so far the only things I've kind of noticed from what the people I follow on Twitter and stuff like that is that, for example, everything's been improved upon, of course, the maps, the UI, navigation, things like that. I think it's also one of the things I remember one person saying is that enemies no longer chase you on the map.
Oh yeah.
So you can just walk around without being in fear of something like that happening.
So I actually did not. I've heard some impressions, but I actually didn't hear about this. But in the original game, no matter how strong your character was, if you ran close enough to an enemy, they would basically chase you forever. So it was really
I want to die, kill me.
Well, you just didn't want to waste time, get into a battle and wiping them out or fleeing or whatever. So it was just kind of a nuisance. The other thing I'm wondering if I assume they have to have looked at this, was one of the main criticisms of the original was that the world map, not just the normal, area maps, but the world map was kind of hard to navigate, really constricted, and things like that. So I wonder how they.
I've heard there's been improvements on that too. I don't know the specifics
about
it, but yeah.
I have to imagine. I have to imagine they heard complaints there. So
yeah, I hear that there's more clarity on where to go next, and that there's icons and whatnot helpful, tools at your disposal now to say, okay, that's where I go next. It's not like you have to memorize the names of oh, you go to Shibuya next. It's like, oh yeah, where's Shibuya again? It's like. So
the original,
I hear
the original game kind of assumed you knew Japan or Tokyo's layout.
I was like, wait, oh no.
Head to the castle in in whatever region of the city, and where is that?
I also hear that the soundtrack is still very much on point. I hear the soundtrack is still very strong in it, and that they've advertised this as well. They always had this catchphrase in the Shin Megami Tensei 4 final marketing campaign of like the English words, "This epic is not sweet." Signifying, it's a very bleak game, and during development they actually had to there were actually arguments behind the scenes of like, we can't make it too tragic or sad or whatever. Like, you gotta have at least a spark of like hope for people, in it. So that I guess they had a happy compromise on that, but it's very much that first and foremost it's not a very happy tale. You're not in there strolling in.
No, I mean that seems pretty obvious. If you've seen like the trailers that they put out, it seems pretty awful. But
I think one of the first things that happens in the game is your main character either dies or gets mortally wounded and gets possessed by a ghost. That's it.
That's the crazy thing.
It's actually I think it's even from his design too that the main character is somewhat reminiscent of the Demi-Fiend from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Which is from probably the most popular game in that mainline series. So it seems to be somewhat reminiscent of that kind of like it's kind of a weird attitude to it. Just
very cyberpunkish.
Yeah, exactly. Very cyberpunkish. And I think other than that, I've just the praises for the soundtrack. It's apparently better than it ever was. And they also announced DLC already for that game. I think they announced like costumes and leveling DLC and stuff like that.
Cheat DLC.
Yeah, cheat DLC pretty much. Just like
the original game had some cheat DLC. It had some costumes and stuff, but it did end up having some optional boss battles that were legitimately difficult. So
yeah, that kind of miffed me because those optional like boss battles things did it would unlock the ability to fuse them as well. So they were kind of gated behind this DLC. Like you couldn't make that demon until you bought that DLC, and I still don't dig it. Like that aspect.
Yeah, I think we've dwelled on this a little bit, but for example, there's these 4 angel demons that are pretty popular SMT demons that are in every game, Raphael and the other ones, and in SMT4 you had their DLC only type. So
yeah.
So Shin Megami Tensei 4 Final is already out in Japan as of February 10th. No localization announcement just yet. Atlas hasn't said anything. I don't know if it's because they're more focusing on Persona 5 coming out this summer, but we can hope. I'm sure a lot of fans are praying for that to happen.
Oh,
so hopefully they bring the good news, make 2016 even better. Then moving on to our last piece of news, Toukiden 2. They finally put out some new information about that. All we had before from last TGS was a trailer. Now they've actually talked more about what that game is. I mean, other than some magazine scans and interviews, they've gone into more depth about the open world aspect of that game, which to me, who played those 2 games and reviewed them, it's kind of crazy that it's going open world, and I wonder how that'll be. I mean, it sounds like you'll still have a hub that you can return to, a home base, as it were, but the structure of the world is more insane, more open, in that you can go out and do different things, fight more enemies. It's not as restrictive as it was before, because in Toukiden 1 and Kiwami, which is just a remake with some more content added at the end of it, you pretty much had just that home base, and then you can go off to these different specific areas, kind of like Monster Hunter, of course, which is obviously it's going to be always compared to. But in this, it sounds like there's way more to do, and I'm kind of curious about that. I think the great thing about the Toukiden games in the past is that it kind of focused more on its story, which I could not really get into Monster Hunter because it doesn't do much at all with story, and that's why I like the God Eater games in Toukiden, is because they are more of a for a narrative-driven experience, and so they put out some more.
And that also kind of just sets it apart from Monster Hunter. If it didn't have a story, it'd just be more of the same. Like Monster Hunter is kind of intentionally just more of the exploration, and so that kind of sets it apart.
Yeah. Monster Hunter is about living a hard life, man. You're just a humble venturer. You're just trying to get through by the day. It's like, how am I going to feed my family in my village?
Yeah, Toukiden, I'll be honest. Toukiden is super bleak, extremely bleak. You're in this You're basically in this outpost, this last bastion of humanity, where all the demons are closing in, and you're trying to protect this place because that's for the inevitable, basically, and trying to fight back like all these demons coming after you. So it's really bad.
And they've said that this game, they haven't said it's a sequel outright, but they said it takes place in the same like universe, same canon. So it's actually not separated. I'm not sure how much you have to play the first one to understand the second one, whatever.
I would say played. It's on PC already. Right. So,
yeah, it's on PC. You can get it probably cheap on PC or on PSN.
Oh, I don't know about cheap. Koei apparently likes to keep their prices high on a lot of the games. But
anyways, it's connected in some way. And yeah, so they finally came out with some screenshots of some of the characters. The one character they showed in the trailer from TGS is actually an English girl who somehow made her way to Japan and ended up one of these demon slayers.
Yeah.
She's the blonde-haired girl. So if that wasn't obvious, she wasn't from Japan originally.
I think her name's Gwen, I believe.
Gwen.
Yes, it's Gwen. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's a couple other characters. There's a Dr. Hakase and her little like puppet thing. So they've caught a couple of the characters. One thing they've also noted: the original Toukiden had like demon part destruction, right?
Yes.
Where you could like chop off a tail or whatever.
You have to chop it off and then suck it up. Stand around for like minutes.
They've also said that returns, but it sounds like they're going to be doing a little bit more with it in terms of like if you chop off a part of an enemy, how they start behaving and things like that. They'll start, maybe their abilities will be tweaked or might be more reckless or who knows.
But that's important because in the past with Toukiden, it's that you chopped off certain parts and what really only set it apart was that there was different forms for the boss characters for these demons, and that's all you really got to experience out of that. And it was always the same forms over and over. It got extremely repetitive, and so and that's what put off a lot of people from the games is because of that, because you're basically doing the same thing over and over. I kind of like the tedium at a point, but it was the story I came to. So that they're doing that, I think is the best way forward for that series. They need to do more with the boss encounters. Otherwise, people are going to be so not willing to even pay attention to how good the story is, which it is.
I'm just interested in how big of the scope this open world is going to be for this, because to me it's still like crazy that it's transitioning to be a completely open world. So you're going to have like these crazy encounters, like the most unexpected creatures at some environment. That's like you'll encounter creatures that are like, oh man, I really shouldn't be fighting this creature at this like a canyon, for example. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and the good thing is, at least, is that's this series. If it does one thing extremely well, it's its design, like the character design, the monster design. If you look at screenshots for these games, even going back to the first one, they always look amazing. Obviously you have to concern yourself with like the quantity of the monster designs, like how varied they are, yes, and how big that open world is. Is it going to be actual open and full of exploration, or are you just going to be kind of funneled into these like small cramped quarters, these clearings, and that's the only place you can really do battle in. So I wonder how far they go with that. So yeah, but Toukiden 2, they haven't announced a release date for that game. We don't even know if it's coming out this year, but I would imagine so. But it's coming to the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and the Vita. Actually, I think it is. It was actually scheduled for this year, wasn't it?
Was it announced for localization?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But only Japan. But yeah, I really hope
I think the website says 2016, so yeah, it's probably this year.
Yeah. Read our reviews for Toukiden 1 and Kiwami on the site. I highly recommend Kiwami. It was a great game, just held back by some repetition, but that's kind of what that type of genre is known for. So you're kind of have to put up with that for a very good story with a very long game too. So I think with that we're pretty much up with the news. So that's it for this week's news, and we'll of course be continuing on with that every other week, posting some news for you guys to experience, and also check up all the other articles on our site, rpgsite.net. But that should be it.